Hello and welcome to this week's Wisdom Wednesday episode on the Alter Your Health podcast. We are in the middle of our Alter Your Health from Head to Toe series. I'm Dr. Susanna Alter.
And I'm Dr. Ben.
And we're both naturopathic doctors who support individuals in reversing disease and reclaiming optimal health through whole food plant-based nutrition and mind-body medicine.
So today in Wisdom Wednesday, we're talking about the connections between our skin and our mind, because of course our state of mind or our state of emotion, because of course our skin reflects what's going on inside our body, and what's going on inside our body is a reflection of what's going on inside our state of mind. So yes, everything is indeed all connected. And just a little recap on Medicinal Monday, we talked about the Alter Your Health from Head to Toe and all the things that can be going wrong with our skin, common conditions like acne and eczema and psoriasis and whatnot. And we talked about what's causing these sort of things and the hormonal elements and the toxicity elements and the immune inflammatory elements, etc. And the clearest connection that I can draw is that our hormones are really controlled by our nervous system, and our stressful state of the nervous system can exacerbate and disrupt hormonal balancing to cause skin outbreaks, whether it's an outbreak of acne or eczema or anything like that. And I know that I have for sure experienced this, and I think it's pretty common. I don't think I'm alone, that, during periods of stress, there's a little bit of a flare of a few zits or pimples or whatever it might be. So that's just one of the very the obvious connections that exist between skin and state of mind.
It's funny because there's an obvious connection that is manifesting right now on my face, which is...
I was noticing that your face is a little
really
pink.
red. I'm really red right now if you can't see me.
What's up with that?
If you're listening. Well, I was just on a really emotional phone call where I was feeling a lot of anger and actually expressing myself very truthfully, which is a little bit uncomfortable for me generally.
I have to say, yeah, when I came into the room the minute before the top of the hour when we were starting a podcast, I thought that Susanna looked a little bit different, but I didn't take a close look.
My face is completely blushed. But yeah, certainly. I mean, I think there's many people out there who know that kind of flushing feeling or blushing feeling when emotions rise in the body, and there's that immediate reflection on the skin, and that is one of the most immediate mind-body connections that we can actually see with our very eyes.
For some people more than others.
But
of course, that's not really what we're talking about, because flushing of the skin is not really a chronic skin condition.
It's not.
But it is a representation of that shift of the nervous system, which can have consequences for the skin and other parts of the body, of course.
Of course.
So you've got a book, a little reference book here that you're opening up to, looking at acne.
Yeah, so I'm gonna select a few skin conditions in here that had kind of similar themes behind them. Mm-hmm. And these are also pretty common skin afflictions. So the first one is acne. The second one was eczema. And just because this one's on the same page, abscess. I mean, abscesses maybe aren't as common as like acne, but certainly some zits can then form into further abscesses.
Can be, the infections.
But anyway, kind of inflammatory. Outside? I think there's a cat outside right there, looking in at us. It's our cat.
I didn't know that there was a cat outside.
Yes, but yes, kind of inflammatory skin conditions, and it's hard to just pick a few out of so many on this list here. But let's just talk about some of the themes that are coming up from probable mental causes. And this is actually from Louise Hay's book called You Can Heal Your Life. And so for acne, it says the probable cause is not acceptance of self or dislike of self. Now for eczema, It says breathtaking antagonism, mental eruptions.
That's pretty similar.
It's pretty similar. For abscesses, we see fermenting over hurts, slights, and revenge. And so one of the themes that I've really been picking up on as I've been reading through the different skin conditions here is anger, both at oneself or dislike of oneself, or anger towards someone else, or feeling like someone else has hurt us. There's a lot of themes around like protection, right? Because our skin is like a protective organism. But there is this kind of like festering kind of anger, dislike, kind of negative energy that is coming up in a lot of these skin afflictions here on this list.
Yeah, and one other thing that is not on that list and not really represented in Louise Hay's chart here, that it comes to mind for me is really just the pure self-love and acknowledgement, acceptance. And I know that for me, when I would have little acne flares and outbreaks, I would feel really ashamed of myself and have a really hard time like being in public and like being really self-conscious about like what I looked like. And then that made it worse, right? And then that made not only like my feeling worse, but it made the physical condition of my skin seem to look worse. And the other thing that comes to mind, again, for me personally, is like, and Susanna knows this pretty well, that like I tend to pick stuff. And what the way that I think about it is when I have like a zit or a pimple or a rash or something, like, itching and picking, and I just think about how I am picking on myself, kind of emotionally and mentally as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that whenever we have a flare or an outbreak or something that itches or scratches or that we want to pick or remove or we're self-conscious of, it's always an opportunity to just like embrace ourselves more completely and fully and unconditionally. And again, that's something that has come up for me in my history and experience with, I wouldn't say that I ever had like really bad acne, but I had really severe self-conscious thoughts around the nature of my skin at times. And I think that is always a good opportunity.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. And so, I guess I think it'd be kind of interesting and fun to look at these themes of not accepting oneself or not accepting someone else, or feeling anger towards someone else or towards ourselves, looking at all of this from kind of a higher angle, a higher viewpoint. Because once again, in this wonderful book from Louise Hay, like there are these great, beautiful affirmations. For example, and I actually utilized this in my own healing process of acne when I was 22. Every single day, I would look at myself in the mirror and say the affirmation for acne, which is, I am a divine expression of life. I love and accept myself where I am right now. Love that. Let's just look at eczema real fast. Harmony and peace, love and joy surround me and indwell me. I am safe and secure. And so, while some people receive tons of benefit from kind of practicing these affirmations, what is more powerful from my perspective is really kind of understanding where that uncomfortable, hurtful, or self-hating kind of feeling comes from in the first place, and dissolving that from understanding rather than from flexing some kind of affirmation muscle.
Yeah, because quite frankly, the insecurity or the self-hatred or the criticism or whatever it is not merely a lack of affirmation, right? Put it another way, negative self-talk is not a lack of positive self-talk. Negative self-talk is just having our negative thoughts and taking them seriously and creating a whole narrative and story around them rather than understanding the nature of thought, and both quote unquote positive thought and negative thought, and giving ourselves the space to see that and disengage from that, and be more of a witness and observer in our thought created reality, rather than being like so wound up and wrapped up in it.
Definitely. Yeah, so I think what's coming forward for me as like kind of the most resonant thing to discuss today is that feeling of self-hatred or self-criticism. If self-hatred is like too intensive a term, I think we can all relate to that self-criticism, which many of us have a tendency to criticize ourselves from time to time.
Mm.
And yeah, yeah, Ben, what do you have to say about
Self-criticism.
self-criticism, understanding what it is, where it comes from?
Well, I think that, thanks for asking. I think that, any sort of quote unquote negative thought pattern, you call it, it's such a fine line between what makes it quote unquote negative and what can make it quote unquote positive. Because I think about criticism as being an essential component for humanity, to be able to criticize and to be critical. And what I mean, and I know you're kind of like, oh,
No, carry on.
like, I don't know about what this
Carry
Ben
on.
guy has to say, but criticism means that we're able to discern, what is going to be self-honoring and productive and constructive versus what's going to be sabotaging or draining. And so but then on top of self-criticism, there's judgment, and so there's like the purity of just being critical, and then there's the judgmental nature of being critical. So I think that self-criticism can be, we can be critical of ourselves, and we can, I guess what I'm trying to say is we can strive to, make ourselves, into the best version of ourselves at any given point in time, from an inspired place, without the judgment of, I need to do this, I need to do that, I'm not good enough. So when the criticism is coming from that place of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not this or that until I do this or that, or until I look like this, until my acne resolves, until I feel better, then I'm not going to be good enough. If that's where the criticism is coming from, that's completely different than, you know, you know, that conversation that I had, it didn't really go the way that I wanted it to. And next time I'm going to be more mindful and put my best foot forward with more intent and convey something in a different way. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. Actually, as you were talking, I was really thinking about I, it's funny because at first I was kind of like, where's Ben going with this? So I was kind of maybe even criticizing the direction Ben was going in, talking about criticism, because there is this quote from, is it Robert Holden? I love it so much. The quote is that there's no amount of self um, improvement that can make up for a lack of self-acceptance, and that's
Right.
always been something that I've liked to live by.
And that's not to say that we shouldn't improve ourselves.
Well, I wanted to
Sorry.
provide an example because I was trying to think of situations where I've been critical of myself, but in a way that is actually supporting me in expressing myself in a more truthful or aligned, or the full expression of my full potential. That is a kind of very constructive criticism for myself without that level of being hard on myself or trying to improve myself. And actually, I was just thinking of an example of realizing, looking at some of my behaviors from a critical eye and seeing how, I had a tendency to kind of sell myself short in some areas. I had a tendency to kind of, you know, play down my talents or my capabilities, and looking at that from a critical eye is actually, from my perspective now, what I see is like very, very supportive and in line with me really expressing myself from a more truthful place. Because, when you said like self-criticism can help us be our best selves, I didn't even really like that term
It
best
never comes out.
selves.
It never comes out right.
Yeah,
does
I
it?
think like the
Yeah.
more accurate phrase would be to help you be more of yourself, because who you are is like perfect.
Yeah, so the self-criticism is like we can be critical of our ego, for lack of a better term. We can be critical of our shadow and like call it out, right?
Yeah.
Call it out, acknowledge it, recognize it. And in doing so, allow more of our true nature to take front and center of our life and to be the guide.
Exactly. And that is so different from the self-criticism from that place of feeling not good enough or unworthy or whatever it is. Yes. Yeah. So let's talk about criticism from that place. Because I think we can all pretty much relate to that too, right? And we say this in almost every episode of Wisdom Wednesday, but that quality of thinking, that level of thinking, like it has a lowness to it, right? It doesn't feel good in the body. And that's just an indicator that we're buying into some thoughts that really don't serve us, but also are not necessarily true. And in most cases, in pretty much 100% of the case, aren't true.
No, well,
I mean, they're only true if we believe them to be true.
Yeah. Thoughts aren't real, right? We've covered that topic before as well.
Yes.
Thoughts are not real. Any of them, none of them.
Yes.
So
that's like, to me, one of the biggest things to realize is that, I can think of times in my life where I was very hard on myself, and pretty much this stream of thought throughout the day going through my head was all negative and self-critical. And just how I automatically believed it. I automatically took those thoughts seriously and believed them to be true. Realizing that we don't have to do that is the key to setting ourselves free. And that's not to say that those thoughts don't come in still from time to time, and that I don't still have a tendency to buy into them from time to time. But having that level of awareness and understanding really does help
your skin remain
helps
bright
my
and
skin
clear.
remain bright and clear. But another crucial part of being aware of the times we get stuck in those ruminating thoughts of self-criticism is the brilliance of the body and our biofeedback system of how that low feeling that we get when we're ruminating in self-critical thoughts. It's like the poke. Wake up, Susanna. Look where your thoughts are.
Yeah.
And
right.
Thoughts are nothing, as you've said.
Thoughts are not real. Well, on that note, I guess we can wrap things up, even though we're a little bit all over the place in our conversation today. And I'm wondering, like, really, how does this tie back to skin? Of course, our state of mind. We kind of started our conversation around how our state of mind is influencing our physiology, and stress hormones and etc. Inflammatory pathways can cause or exacerbate skin conditions. Absolutely 100%. And on top of that kind of direct physiologic cause and effect pathway, there's a deeper emotional, spiritual opportunity that always exists as we're traversing our relationship with ourselves and our skin, which is, I don't know, it's just so interesting to consider how, like, our skin, it's like just this layer of cells, and it's not who we are, but it matters so much to so many people, the
Mm.
nature of our skin and what color it is and how bright it is, and if there's any blemishes, and we pay for makeup and to like put stuff on it and tan it and different. It's just very interesting. So I don't know.
Well, to clarify, we're not saying that acne is caused by self-loathing or anything like that. I mean, that's what Louise Hay is saying here as a probable cause. Really, my intention for these Wisdom Wednesday calls from head to toe is to just continually exploring different areas within kind of like emotional mental tendencies that can relate to the overall level of physiological stress that contributes to
Right.
chronic disease. So yeah, it might not be that there's this direct spiritual connection between self-loathing and your skin conditions,
But
but
there's always an opportunity.
there's always an opportunity. Yes.
And that's, I guess, in a long story short, that's one thing that I really like to try and convey and live as best I can, is from that place of understanding that life is opportunity. Life is for learning. And at least we can open our open ourselves to the possibility. Maybe we can't see the lesson bright and clear in front of us, but we can consider that there might be something available when it comes to physical health struggles. So yeah, we're going to be exploring those connections and opportunities and lessons in the Wisdom Wednesdays ahead, but hopefully there's some insight gained around the connection between our skin and our state of mind. I know like I said and shared, I always really, the connection is really clear to me.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, thanks everyone for tuning in for this Wisdom Wednesday. Next week, we'll be moving on to the next structure. I don't know. Technically, the next structure is the skull, so our skeletal system.
Should we go okay.
Should we go to bones?
We could go to bones.
We might just go to bone health.
All right. So peace and love, you guys. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.